Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Adrian.
Good morning.
Adrian, I'm going to set this up before the next meeting where I don't have to admit anybody. You just come in automatically.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, especially when I'm doing something else and I get a call from you saying, "Are you opening this up yet?" It's embarrassing.
Well, there was a few in the waiting room.
I know. You're right. Either that or I got to provide some booze in the waiting room or something.
Yeah, there you go. Well, all right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm sure we'll have a few more people showing up as we go along. We have two kind of big chunks of things to do today. One is the homeless memorial moment, which will start at 9:40. And then at 10 o'clock, we have Tara Underly coming from the Adult Protective Services to talk to us about what they can do and what they can't do and who they are and so on. So I wanted to spend about 10 minutes at the start here, which is now 5 minutes, for updates and urgent things that people want to say to each other.
I wonder if there is an update. You attached an image to the email that went out today about the people that have died recently, and there's no name with the image of the young woman.
I don't know her name. She died in Guerneville, and Cheryl sent her picture to me, and that said that she had died just in the last day or so. But that's all I know about her.
Okay, I'll email Cheryl.
Yeah. She may come. I don't know what her day's like today.
Yeah.
Carrie.
Her name is Stephanie.
Thank you.
No, what was her last name, Carrie? It's not Guillory, is it?
I don't know her. So no, I don't know her last name.
Yeah, okay.
I've seen
Why
her
I can't
around, but
use
I
it?
never had.
I
a
don't
chance
know.
to-
The last person that helped me switched me over to a 530 number somehow.
Could you mute yourself, please? Okay, so I think you heard that, Gail, that he doesn't know her.
I didn't do it. It wasn't supposed to be switched.
I'm gonna mute Vera.
No.
Thank you.
Oh, except I have to, Gregory, you have to make me a co-host so I can that. I'm sure she doesn't realize she's talking to all of us. Are there any other
It could have been 12:13,
questions or
4:50
updates?
p.m. to 5:22 p.m.
So much for muting.
I got it. Anyone else, updates or questions or? No. I can tell you that, oh yeah, Gregory.
Yeah, going back to the names of people who died, I just want to report that I have 30 names of people that I think Anita prepared about a year and a half ago, that I want to do something with. Either, so what are we doing? Are we just acknowledging them today, or we're going to read them before the board, or what? Because these names ought to be added to the list of people that we know recently. They're people who died in 11, 12, 13, 16. People who died in the last 10 years, 12, 10, 8, 10, 10, 10. Kind of a history of who's died from, I think, Anita's point of view.
Yeah, if you followed the link I sent for the
I didn't.
the people who are kind of talking about National Homeless Memorial Day, they have a tracking tool that they would like us all to use. And they talk a lot about how most municipalities don't, or counties don't track homeless people who die in that particular way. They just say somebody died. And
Right.
so you have to track them down individually, and they're really encouraging people to do that tracking so that there's a more consistent number. They had an average, a guesstimate of how many people died, and it was some in the US was something like 5,000 to 20,000. It was completely wild.
Well, there's 30 people.
Carrie, did you say something else? Gary?
So, we had two people go this last week in Guerneville. One was the girl that went 2 nights ago, an overdose. And then the real tragedy, Luke. Luke was a gentleman that loved to read. He was a hoarder that we've been working with. We had him down to his hoard, what he could carry in both hands. He understood what was going on. He was a really nice guy. He froze to death Tuesday morning. Not good. Not good. Shelter's full. Yeah. Georgia's highway isn't up and going. So we have people freezing to death. This isn't right. It's been a shock to the entire homeless community here. 2 nights ago when I went out to give out blankets, I didn't have to because everybody had scored. We've been giving out blankets for the last several days, a couple sleeping bags that we were able to pick up. But it's to the point where we need more than what's going on. I hear that Georgia's highway is not going to be a safe parking area. It's just going to have a few spots in it for people. This isn't really acceptable. It's too small. It's just way too small. Somebody has to actually do some thinking about this and start leveling the area out there, putting in terraces, putting in tents. We need to get these people off the streets. The shock of Luke going. I was out that night giving out blankets. I didn't see him. I was looking for people. Amy saw him about half an hour after we went, and she didn't call us. When she found Luke, he was soaking wet and shivering. The next morning, he had septicemia. He was throwing up. They tried to save him. It didn't happen. He hadn't had anything to eat for 4 days, and he was able to get a hold of 2 large cups of soup. He shouldn't have eaten that much that quick. Just like the German prisoners in World War II, when our servicemen came in there and saw these starving people, they started feeding them, and they killed them. That's what happened to Luke. Exactly what happened to Luke. I'm sorry, I can't go on.
Okay, Karen. It's a horrible, tragic story. Horrible. Gail?
I was gonna say, I'm out of town, but I just glanced through the newspaper today and yesterday, and there was nothing about these folks. And I thought the Bohemian is usually really receptive. Perhaps if you ever get the strength, Carrie, you could write up a paragraph or 2 about Luke and submit it to the Bohemian. I doubt if the Press Democrat's gonna publish these tragic figures, but it seems like the public has an obligation to know. That's all.
Thank you. Ludmilla, and then Gregory.
Yeah, so Saturday night, around 9:30, 10 o'clock, I was noodling around Santa Rosa. And there's a couple of unsheltered people over by the Safeway. on Mendocino. And temperatures were dropping down into the 30s, going to get down to 35 or below that night. And I handed the one guy who was awake, I printed out some copies of the winter shelter flyers, and I said, I don't know if it, if it'll help, would it help you to have this? And I know that they're not open, they have hours, and that wasn't in his hours. And I said, could you use a can opener? And they said, yeah. And and anyways, I came back out, did some shopping, came back out, they were still there. And I asked about their plans, and anyways, one guy was sleeping on the bare concrete. He was kind of passed out, and he had his dog on top of him for warmth, but they, didn't have a blanket or anything. And I thought, well, shoot, this is not good. Anyways, I called in, for lack of another better thought, I called in to 911 to just see what would happen, see if somebody could come around with warm up or something, and the operator said, well, I don't know, we can send a policeman around, but we're just going to tell them that they could go into a shelter. And I said, I don't believe the shelters are open at this time for them to go into. And they said, oh, well, there's plenty of resources out there. They just need to go and avail themselves of it. And I said, I don't think that there are. My knowledge is that there aren't. Where are these resources? Oh, they just need, and she kind of reiterated that a couple times, and I said, I don't believe that's the case. And she said, in future, please make a call like this on the non-emergency line.
Wow.
And I drove home.
Wow. Gregory.
I'd really like to know where that dispatcher was and where she was working out of. Saturday, I was over at the storage area where we Save stores its RV, and the city's in response van was over there being tricked out with some plastic, some areas of the inside so that they could clean it better. I really think we have to put pressure on the city and on the county to either open more warm beds or be more responsive. I was asked earlier about those. The list I have ends in 19. I really like to get an updated list and then read them one by one before the Board of Supervisors. We really need to get reporters information by saying the names of people and making a protest at the Board of Supervisors. There's some new staff around on the PD, and I want to give them a chance to write good stories, but we don't provide them with that information. Nobody provides them with that information, and it's up to us to do it.
Thank you. A couple of you have come in just recently. We are spending a few minutes talking about National Memorial Day for homeless people who have died outside, and also in particular, a couple people who died in Guerneville this last week. Andrea.
Thank you. I just want to second exactly what Gregory said. I know I asked you earlier as well, Adrian, those 52 beds that are spoken about in that handout that was given to us about the extra winter shelter beds is woefully inadequate. That will not cover the need. I'm also seeing people stretched out on the concrete asleep. And the problem is that they don't have the wherewithal or the means to get themselves in anywhere by themselves. We have to pick them up and take them somewhere. And I'd be willing to do that in the Saves van if we had a place to take them. If the county can hear us and open up the Vets Hall or something, but we need to do something for this inclement weather that we're going to experience. I'm very concerned, and I know that my colleagues in outreach are, all of us. Thank you.
So anyone else would like to speak on this? I think that, yes, Cynthia,
You're
you're
muted.
muted.
Yes, I'm in full support of our taking the action that Gregory suggested somehow, and it has to be immediate.
I don't know what the action was, so
Well, maybe Gregory could explain it again, but I mean, how quickly can we do it? What do we need?
Well, what I was suggesting is tomorrow at the Board of Supervisors, we read these and any other updated names of people who we know have died. You know, we take 3-minute segments and, just go through the names.
yeah, help me out, Cal.
Pardon?
Go
So-
ahead, Gregory.
So anyway, this is being recorded. It's going on my computer. I'm gonna go back and listen to what Carrie said, and I'm gonna try and collect more names of people that we know who have died. If I have all the names, I'll stand there and read it for as much as I can do in 3 minutes. I'm just saying if a couple more people will help me take this list
Be
and
yours,
both
Cal.
read the names and ask for the opening of the Vets Hall or any other place. The county and the city have said in the past that they would open facilities they have when it reached a certain temperature or reached a certain whatever. We need to put pressure on them to do at least what they can do without any excuses.
I think that's a good idea. I know some people are going to be doing some cleanup work on Morris tomorrow. Are there other people here who have the ability to go to the supervisors meeting? I think it's you can go by Zoom or you can go over to their off, where they have it, their, what do they call that? The supervisor's chamber. Either way works.
I'm gonna do it.
Is there anyone else who could tomorrow? All right, I will try to be there with Gregory and we'll do what we can. Carrie, do you know the name, Luke's last name?
No, all I know is his street name. So that doesn't really help.
Well, I've got some that look like there's street names on this list, but
Yeah, tell us his street name if you don't mind.
I knew him by Luke.
all right, we'll just
And
put Luke.
I want
Luke
to
and
leave
Bruno.
it there. I want to use his real name. I don't want to use his street name, man. He's
Okay,
a person. He's a person, not an item.
Well, help me
all right.
describe this.
That's fine. The other thing we could do is write a letter, an open letter, which could go to the supervisors, the city council, the Bohemian, Channel 5, all of the other outlets people are talking about. Is there someone who could draft us a letter? It doesn't real extensive, just a couple paragraphs of outrage and a little bit of retelling what you just heard here. Cynthia, yes?
Yeah, I'll try that.
Thank you. Great. And yeah, send a letter to me. Send it out to the rest of you for any last minute changes, and then we'll just try to get it out maybe tomorrow or the next day at the latest.
Thank you, Cynthia. And I really appreciate that. And I would want you to mention, please, that many of these shelters require intake, and then they want the people to be gone at 7 a.m. They make them leave at 7 a.m. I'm sorry, but 7 a.m., it's still extremely cold outside. There's no place for them to go. We need emergency shelter, not just a shelter bed for the night.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Andrea?
Do-
Andrea, could you be very specific? Because I think the shelter is 24 hours, but there are others which are not. I think Sam Jones is 24 hours as well.
Sam Jones is, but there are some that require people to leave. Some of the, on that flyer, some of them are required to leave by 7 a.m. That's what the information on the flyer said. I'm sorry, I don't have the flyer with me. I just remember reading that.
Okay. Yeah, Cynthia?
I just have a question. Do we want to add some demands to this letter?
Please.
Well, I think we're demanding immediate shelter now.
Okay,
Emergency shelter for getting people out of the elements.
okay.
A warm place for people to go, out of the rain, out of the cold.
Thank you.
Hi, Tara. I'm glad to see you here. We are just, we just spent a few minutes with Homeless Memorial Day and a couple of the people who died in Guerneville this last week. So we'll be with just a few minutes with wrapping it up. Carrie.
In Guerneville, I noticed a decade ago, more than a decade ago, when the shelter puts people out, the parade begins. Actually, they join the parade that's already going. Starting around 4 o'clock in the morning on cold mornings, the parade begins. What's the parade? The parade is homeless people draped in blankets, walking the streets, trying to get warm. When the shelter pushes people out, they congregate in the sun. If there's no sun, they walk and they walk and they walk. There is no way for them to get warm. I don't know about shelters, but some simple warming huts would work. And I can create a warming hut with less than $100 in about an hour. It doesn't take much. PVC, plastic, heaters, plug them into a power source. Warming huts. In the summertime, you can only take off so much. And then we find people that are white as ghosts. They're shaking. They have heat prostration. There's no cooling huts. This is what we need. Not about shelters for people staying overnight, but people that are alive during the day. They need warmth in the winter. They need cool in the summer. This is
So
what
Carrie, in terms of Guerneville, where you,
this is what I talk to, the people that I talk to. Please help me. Do you have any water? Oh God, I'm cold. I hate my life. Do you have anything to keep me warm? Can I get in your truck? If I let them in my truck and they're warm, and then I gotta kick them out. Do you know what it feels like to push a person out into the cold? After they've been shivering, they finally look at you and they're warm and you've gotta go. It's
yes,
heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. It gives me PTSD. I think about these people when I watch the news and they say it's going to be 34 degrees out. What goes in front of my mind is ghosts. I see the figure of death walking along draped in a blanket. When I hear about people that we're going to hit 100 degrees, Sally and I start gathering water bottles. And we put them in the refrigerator, we cool them down, and we take these people water bottles so they can refill them. We go out with water when it's cold because there's no resources at all. Nothing. No heating huts, no cooling huts, nowhere for people to go get a drink. Just to sit there and suffer as much as they can. And then people complain because they're huddling in the shade. Oh, we don't want them on 3rd Street. Well, 3rd Street has the shade. Oh, we don't want them on Mill. Well, Mill has the sun.
Thank you, Carrie. Eddie?
Hello, and thank you. And I don't know why I'm back at this meeting, to be honest with you. But, you know, it's kind of like police, you know, when people start dying, you know, the police come out, you know, when people get killed. We don't see that happening either. It's because ignorance is guiding us. Because ignorance is guiding us with policy, with legislation. Because selfish people think that, you know, they could occupy seats that, you know, they have no experience in handling. They dictate policy. And, you know, even grassroots groups, you know, that proclaim action for homeless people continue to allow ignorance to dictate policy. What are we doing, people? Friday, I had to find the courage to, by myself, all alone. I have nobody. And I gotta confront ignorance with elected officials who feel that it's wise to stay the course of ignorance, which actually means we now have premeditated ignorance taking place at the COC. And they're all guilty, not the person who holds the seat. No, it's not her fault. I found this out also because I mediated with the person who occupies the seat for, you know, someone with actual lived experience so that they could share the things, you know, that actually happen. So they'd know what Kerry's talking about. So that they would know what it's like to be in the cold. So they know what it's like when they gotta go out there and fix that seam in that tarp. Yeah, I go by over there. Yeah, I can't go there. You want to know why I can't go there to visit the friends that I love over there? Because I can't give them a reason to not say why not. That's why. But I gotta go confront ignorance alone. People are dying, Ludmilla. They're dying. Do you understand that?
Okay, Eddie.
No, it's not okay, Adrian.
It is okay. It is okay that you've had some time to speak, and now we're going to stop on this topic. Tara is here, and I want to give her the time that we've allowed and set up for her to talk about the Adult Protective Services. Of course, there's deep grief and deep sorrow and emotions, and it raises all of this. So we're going to try to do what we can. And let's hope that tomorrow brings a better day. Tara, are you still with us?
Hi there.
Hi. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So
We just had this kind of emotional moment here because there were 2 people that died last week, and I mean, there are people dying all the time. So I would just like if you just start out, tell us a little bit about yourself, and that'll give us some transition here.
Okay, and I have about 30 minutes. So I've been with Adult Protective Services for 15 years, and I've been with our department much longer than that. So I've been providing services to the older adult population and the dependent adult population for many, many years. So let me just start off by saying that Adult Protective Services is a county agency, and you know, we receive our mandates from the state of California. So we, you know, we function within that role. What the state asks us to do is to reach out when we receive a report of concern about somebody and make contact with them and offer services. And also just to investigate what the concerns were that were reported to our agency. So I want to let everybody know that, you know, we're a social work agency, so we work collaboratively with the community and community members. We're not an agency that has any role to conserve adults or tell adults how to live or what to do. We're there to help adults find resources and find ways to maybe decrease some of the struggle that they're having. And our services are voluntary. So sometimes people aren't in a place to, you know, be ready to, you know, interact with our agency. And we respect that. We respect that right. So as Adult Protective Services, the population that we're providing help to is anyone over 65 and people that are considered dependent adult in the community. And the state has a very, the way they define a dependent adult is anyone who has a mental or physical disability that makes it difficult for them to advocate for themselves. And so it's someone who might be suffering with a long-term illness such as multiple sclerosis, someone who's receiving North Bay Regional services. And so our agency, we don't have licensed clinicians, so we're not providing mental health services to the community. So if someone's primary issue is mental health, we want to make sure that we're getting them to Sonoma County Behavioral Health. Our agency is there to look at ways we can help them kind of stabilize their circumstances. APS is an agency that I know certainly this group is about housing security. APS is not a housing agency, but we want to make sure the people that we interact with know where to go to access housing information, which right now is the Catholic Charities Coordinated Services. And, you know, a lot of times we'll work with people and their family members and maybe their doctors to help look at what's happening in life that's creating conflict for them. You know, sometimes the abuse that gets reported to us is abuse by another person. So it might be that someone's living with a child who's financially abusing or physically or emotionally abusing them. And we help that person figure out what the options are, ways to keep themselves safe. If it's a criminal issue, we want to make sure that we get police involved to help protect the individual. Sometimes the situation is that they haven't accessed healthcare in a long time, and we help coordinate them with health services in the community, getting them hooked up with a doctor or medical services. And sometimes the abuse or neglect isn't from another person, it's they're struggling kind of to meet their own needs. We are you know, seeing mostly people that are housed, but we do see people that are in the shelters that might still need some resources. And, you know, our role is really to coordinate services that are available for folks. And we do know, and we do acknowledge that there are gaps in services for people. And with regard to housing insecurity, the best way our agencies can support folks is to make sure that they're working with Catholic charities, because we have no bandwidth to look for housing or do placements. That's not our role. And we don't have the resources, and we're not set up to assist the community in that way. So why don't I take some questions?
Thank you, Tara. That was really concise and clear, I think, and very helpful to me.
Yeah, I think people's
I'm gonna-
questions, yeah, will help explore what some things others are thinking about.
Right. Can I ask you just how many reports do you get generally in a month? I think I heard you say most of them are from people in houses. If you
Well,
can all estimated or not, and
I don't have, we
sort
don't
of
work.
what.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just trying to get a little bit of an overview, and I know you're not prepared necessarily to give me exact numbers, but you must have some idea of kind of what the load is that people there. And I guess it'd be good to know how many people work there.
Mhm. So we can get anywhere from 400 to 500 calls a month. And we have 20 social workers. And half of the cases that we work with are people that there is not an abuser in the situation. And then half where there is an abuser in the situation, it's either mental or physical, psychological, or all three that are happening. And again, our role is to, find the resources that we can to help stabilize people.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Andrea and then Carrie.
Thank you. Tara, I have a case right now, a woman that I've been working with who I just met back in October. She has been living in her car. She's 67 years old. She recently had an incident which landed her in the hospital. The hospital, I don't know which one it was. I think it was Memorial. They discharged her to the street. Her condition was such that she could have been discharged directly to one of the shelters that helps with people who have conditions that might need extra care. And the one I'm thinking about is called Nightingale. And that requires a direct medical referral. But the fact that they did not do anything for her, and in fact, they let her go in dirty clothes. I mean, she had soiled herself, and they put her out on the street like that. And I want Adult Protective Services to intervene with the hospital on behalf of cases like this. Is there anything that I can do to help that happen? Because if I go in there just as an outreach worker, they're not going to give me the time of day.
So anyone can make a report to Adult Protective Services. So you can call our intake line 565-5940 and you can make a report to us. And then basically what happens is when people make reports to us, they unfortunately have to be screened to make sure they're meeting our target population. And then it's screened into a social worker. We have public health nurses on our agency that help with medical issues. A lot of times we're triaging with hospitals, talking with hospitals, letting hospitals know, maybe we've worked with this person, maybe we have some background with this person. A lot of times, we'll work with the hospitals and let them know what our concerns are. So trying to advocate that way for folks. Sometimes we're trying to advocate with police. A lot of times when someone reports to us of criminal activity, or in the course of working a case, we find out there's potential criminal activity, we're mandated to let the police know. So a lot of times we try to advocate with the police that, this isn't a family matter. It's actually, the son is actually stealing her money. This is, theft. So our advocacy pushes back on certain systems. But we hold no authority to make systems do what systems do. But we can let them know what concerns are, what the person's going through. If we have any background in your case, Andrea, of the woman's situation, maybe we know of her, maybe we don't.
Well, that's a good point. Someone actually asked me why I didn't actually contact you guys directly about her case, because she has a suspected brain injury.
Uh-huh.
And may not be making wise decisions for herself at all.
Mm-hmm.
I have unfortunately now lost contact with her. She has
Mhm.
moved and I can't find her, and I don't have a phone number for her. So I have to keep looking, but thank
Right.
you very much for
Yeah.
the information. And
Mhm.
I may just go ahead and fill out a report based on what I know and send it in.
It won't help us though. We'll screen it out because we can't find her. So I think what I would say is, if you have contact with her again and you know where she's at, to report to us then, because it just gets lost. We have too many reports coming in.
Okay.
If we don't know where someone is and we don't have the bandwidth to look for people.
I understand.
We can show up at a shelter, or we can show up at the safe parking lot. But if someone's not there, we try 3 times and we have to literally move on to the next case that we have.
I understand.
So
Okay. Well, thank you very much for
you're
your
welcome.
time today.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you all as well. I have to go to another aspect of my job now. Thank you for holding this meeting and forum, and for your great hearts. I appreciate you all. Bye-bye.
You on today. Carrie, and then Ella. Carrie, you're next.
So, we have a person, he sleeps on the cement at night. He's gonna be our next person to go. His name's Dave. He's in a wheelchair. He is in extreme pain, extreme pain. I can't get 2 words out of him. The woman that serves soup at night, she's gotten him open up a little bit. That's how come I know that he's in extreme pain. How can we get services for someone like that? He won't talk to anyone. He doesn't want help, yet he's dying in front of our eyes.
Those are the hardest cases, and they're hard for us too, because I think what all we can do is to reach out and to let people know we're there when they're ready. What I would suggest is that at any point you have eminent concern about him, to have paramedics come and check him out. As APS, we don't function as first responders, so we're often partnering with our first responders to, like you just mentioned, Carrie, go and talk to someone like him who's homeless, in a wheelchair, on the streets, in pain, maybe having a medical emergency. And so, we want to make sure that we can do whatever we can to reach out to that person. And sometimes that means calling law enforcement for a welfare check and asking them to bring medical, so that at least, medical can go and evaluate. And sometimes medical, if the person is in medical distress, sometimes if it's high enough, even if the person refuses, they'll still be taken to the hospital. So it just depends on what the medical assessment looks like. If they're in imminent life and death, they'll be taken against their will at that moment. So that's always something that we end up having to do for folks. And then a lot of times You know, even when people are housed, they're living in dilapidated conditions or rat infested conditions. And, you know, many are not wanting help, and all we can do is, you know, give them a contact when they're ready. And those are hard. It's hard. You have to watch a lot of suffering. You witness a lot of suffering. And that's very, very difficult.
And do sometimes people call you later because they do become ready?
Well, a lot of times we'll get reports from other people and it's about the same person. And, you know, we follow people years and years before some people are kind of ready to work with us. Or, you know, the difficult part is when someone is having such cognitive changes that,
For a 3-month supply the next time you see your doctor or pharmacist. That's 100.
So I'm going to mute you.
There
Okay,
we
go ahead, Tara.
So sometimes, you know, sometimes when someone starts having changes mentally, you know, our agency can become a little bit more direct in how we help the public. And a lot of times that's alerting family member or power of attorneys against the person's consent, because the only way we interact with citizens is if we have their consent to do so. But if we're seeing enough changes cognitively that's putting them at risk, and they're telling us, don't contact my family, or don't contact my power of attorney, or don't contact my doctor, you know, sometimes we have to go against that if we have enough evidence of risk. But we're a government agency, so there's always that delicate balance between honoring someone's right to folly and make bad decisions, and choosing certain things that we know are not in their best interest, but also not having authority, you know, as a government agency to make decisions for them. We are not a conservatorship agency. We do not do conservatorships. That's only done in a court of law. A probate court, a judge only has the power to change a citizen's ability to make their own decisions. And that's a lengthy investigation with reports, and it's highly dependent on evidence. So, you know, when someone's starting to decline mentally, many times it takes a while for them to actually be conserved, because they still have the rights, and the evidence isn't beyond a preponderance of the doubt for a judge to make a determination that somebody else should make their own decision. So oftentimes we're involved in that process as a part of building the evidence that we would then submit to the public guardian's office, who then does their own investigation and writes a report with the evidence for a court. And it might be that we've had information about this person for several years, and we're working with them at a point in their life where there's medical evidence that they're starting to have trouble making their own decisions. So a court needs both medical evidence as well as evidence that they can't meet their own basic needs: food, clothing, shelter, medical care, and that they are prevented because of the mental incapacity to advocate on their own behalf. That doesn't mean, and that's complicated because sometimes there's untreated mental health and sometimes there's substance abuse involved. And that makes the process more challenging and sometimes more complicated. So that's kind of the 3-minute version of probably a 2-hour presentation I can give for everybody. So
Helpful to me.
I see somebody's hand up,
Yeah, Ludmilla.
Ludmilla.
So a couple of questions on this topic. Kind of what percentage of people self-report if they're
Mhm.
being abused, or versus somebody else calling in on behalf of the person?
Not that many, but we have it. And I don't have numbers for you, but about half of our cases are self-neglect cases where there's not a perpetrator involved. And all I can say is, yes, people do call us on their own behalf, but it's not in huge numbers. You know, a lot of times people aren't ready to have help. And a lot of times if it's abuse happening by others or they're declining, there's embarrassment, there's shame, there's depression. You know, there's a lot of reasons that prevents people from talking about what's going on or reaching out. And
I would
sometimes,
I
and
would
some people,
imagine that it's harder for some people to self-report, or that it's harder to process that, and it might be actually really helpful to have somebody else that can kind of see the situation from a little bit of perspective.
yeah, and that's a great segue into mandated reporters. And that's why the states have mandated reporters, is so that there's eyes and ears in the community that can pay attention to red flags about people and report on their behalf. And the reports are anonymous. I mean, sorry, they're confidential. So when mandated reporters make a report, they're confidential. And mandated reporters are doctors, fire departments, police officers, anybody in a nonprofit who's providing a service to this target population is considered a mandated reporter. So caregivers, anyone who's assuming the role of a caregiver who might be noticing something going on is by the state considered a mandated reporter and are asked to report their concern.
Yeah.
And so that report, we don't reveal reporting party information to the client. It's always kept confidential. So
Thank you. I have a question about the over 65, I understand. Or is it 65 and over, or is it
65 and over?
65 and over? Okay. But
Dependent adults.
yeah, now I think of disabled people. Now, when we're saying dependent, does that mean that they have to have like a caretaker, or can somebody be like disabled and kind of struggling even if they don't officially have somebody that
Yeah, and that can be a tricky category. You know, a big piece of that category is, are they unable to advocate for themselves because of their disability? And it could be a mental disability, such as a developmental delay. It could be a brain injury, or it could be cognitive impairment because of a disease process, such as MS or cerebral palsy.
Okay.
But what group we don't specifically provide services to, because we're not equipped to, is folks that are under 65 and their primary issue is mental health and substance abuse. If that is their main struggles, then, and they're under 65, that they unfortunately don't meet our target population, and they're better served by behavioral health. So our agency is helping people that actually have, not that substance abuse and mental health isn't a disability, because it's quite incapacitating for people, but under the way the state looks at disability, it is not considered a disability.
But if they have mental health without a noticeable, without a severe substance issue, then you might be able to take them, right?
If it's purely mental health, we won't. If they're under 65, it's because we're not licensed clinicians and we don't provide mental health treatment. Right?
Okay.
So we're not licensed mental health clinicians, and then we don't provide mental health or substance abuse treatment. So we would make sure that they have the information to access the Sonoma County Behavioral Health Department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but if somebody with a mental health situation was being like abused by somebody else, if it wasn't a self-neglect issue, they could get help with you if there was.
If it's purely, if they're under 65 and they're mental health only and they're having a problem with domestic violence, they're still not our target population, and we would make sure that we would report that incident to the police and provide the individual with behavioral health information. So
Okay.
let's say someone called our agency and they were in the part of their disease process with MS to where they cognitively, they weren't able to advocate for themselves. And they had a caregiver who was neglecting them.
Right.
Now, that person could also have a diagnosed depression or bipolar. They are a population because it's a disability that's mental, physical, that makes them our target population, but they might also have a mental illness that they're struggling with as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really the third question I have is on the types of abuse that you deal with, obviously domestic violence or direct financial abuse, but if there's other, and like I'm going to say abuse from like somebody in the community, do you address that?
So we're investigating physical abuse, mental, psychological abuse, neglect, and financial abuse. And folks have to meet the target population. So
Yeah.
it means they have to be over 65 or a dependent adult between the ages of 18 and 64 with a physical or a mental disability that makes it difficult for them to advocate for themselves and meet their basic needs of food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But a lot of times we might get calls where they're not our target population, but there's a crime being reported to us. And
Mhm.
we will make sure that that crime is reported to the police.
So I want to move on, Ludmilla, because I know Tara's.
Yeah, I've got just a couple
time.
more.
And
That
we
was
do-
that was a great question. It helps clarify other information about our agency. So thank you for the good questions.
Yeah, and I know Mary's had her hand up for a few minutes. So Mary, you're on.
I've got two questions. One is, how often are you getting calls from the emergency department for potential abuse or these situations where people are unable to care for themselves on release? And secondly, do the police have to be with the paramedics when the kind of situation that Carrie described before occurs, where a person's in imminent distress but not able or willing to accept help?
So I'll take the second question first, which is, it depends, you'll call dispatch first with the police department, and you'll explain to them that someone's in medical distress. And then the police will ask you, are there safety issues where the police need to come? And if there's not, and you say no, then usually paramedics are just dispatched to the scene to make the medical assessment for that person. And they can call police if they need, if something arises. So emergency rooms are mandated reporters. So if any personnel in the ER department is concerned about abuse or neglect or self-neglect, they do report to our agency. And we do get quite a few reports from the emergency room department. And like I said, about 50% of the 50% of the cases are around self-neglect. We know a lot of people aging they're lacking the resources that they need. And one thing that's, unfortunate is our agency does not have the silver bullet. We don't have all the answers. We don't always have all the resources. We can only provide and broker services that exist for people. We actually can't make magic. So a lot of times we're having to close our cases and we know people still are in need, and they don't have all their needs met. But we want to make sure that we're getting in there and at least try to reduce as much risk as we can with as many resources as we can, if the person's willing to cooperate with us. But we know that there are very big gaps in services for people that are aging in the community. But we try to do our very best to hook people up with, because many people out there don't know where to reach out, and they don't know about Meals on Wheels, or they don't know about in-home support services, or maybe many of them are on Social Security, but they're eligible for Medi-Cal and they don't know that. So, those are the kinds of things that we can help people connect to help mitigate risk for their situation, are those services that, again, many people may not know about.
What are the biggest gaps that you're seeing in services?
People, yes, great question, Mary. People who need board and care, people who need a higher level of care in their home than they can afford. And there's just not the money to fill the gap in services, or there's not the provider there to help. I would say that's a big gap.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. I just want to say that for me, I have thought that doing a report to APS often led to conservatorship. So I'm really grateful for this really factual information that I don't have to worry about that.
No, and
I
many
also,
people, yeah.
I also feel like if I report someone with the idea that they need conservatorship, or they need more than just a nudge or a referral, then I better be the one to help follow through with the court system to make sure that they're getting what they need and not more than what they need.
Yeah, it's complicated, and conservatorship is very difficult. People have to be really, really, really incapacitated, and there has to be plenty of evidence to show imminent danger. Courts and the public guardian will not take cases on prevention alone. It has to be factual evidence to show the person is mentally incapable of making decisions. So there has to be a medical declaration or a psychological evaluation from a physician or a psychologist that documents that, along with very significant evidence to show they've put themselves at risk because of their mental cognitive impairment, for PG to act on a citizen's behalf. Because the courts also want to see that citizens are receiving the least restrictive intervention. And that means that all services have been explored, all family members or anybody else who can act on their behalf have been contacted, and intervention have been attempted before the most restrictive intervention of a conservatorship is actually put in place. So PG is pretty good about weeding out their petitions if there's other options for that person to remain in the community. So, it's good that there's advocacy out there that really makes a big difference. For that part, when someone's at that point and needs that highest level of intervention and care of a conservatorship, it's a significant process.
Well, I want to thank you for coming, and thank you for, I believe you said 30 years of work.
Almost, it's hard to believe, but yes.
You
So,
know,
and
as
thank you.
said, a lot of what you do is observe suffering and
Yes.
not have the resources to, no magic. And so I honor you for that, co-workers. And really appreciate you coming today and answering all these questions. I think we all probably have a much clearer idea of what we're mandated to do and what is possible to do. So,
well, and same to your group for the advocacy that you're doing and the frontline suffering that you really are willing to get involved with and advocate for. It's so important. And whenever anyone has a question, feel free to call our intake unit. we will answer the phone and engage in conversation with you about the circumstances you're calling about. So
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you.
Say that number again, because you said it really fast.
Yeah, sure. It's 707-565-5940.
Great. I put that in the chat as well. All right. Thank you again. And let's move on to the next topic. Shall we have a little applause and
Thank you.
appreciation for Tara?
Eileen, it's nice to see you. I know you from the ombudsman, so you're continuing your great work. So, okay, thank you everyone so much. Everyone take care. Have a lovely holiday. Okay, bye-bye.
Great. All right. So I have a couple things. I have a report from Suzanne about Morris Street and a little bit of a report from Saves. Let me just do that. Saves, the main thing to say about Saves is that we had planned to open our Sebastopol safe parking by January 15th. Well, I should say it was always a hope, but between the holidays and trying to find contractors and getting the lease signed so we could get into the property, we're pushing that back. It looks like it's going to be the end of January or the beginning of February before we get in. And Hector, did you want to expand on that at all before I?
Hi, everyone. No, that sounds about right. That makes makes a little bit more sense. I think we're, the main obstacle for me was getting the lease signed so that we can go ahead and move forward with actually having, for me anyways, for me to start having vendors and contractors come to give us estimates on their work. So that's the first step for me. But I think even before that, we have to wait for St. Vincent de Paul to demolish the existing area and get it ready for us. So I would imagine from what I heard, it would be ready for us to probably start doing our work that we need to do right after Christmas. I think that's when they foresee the demolishing of the existing structures there would be completed by after Christmas. So then that only gives us, a couple of weeks to get ourselves going. And yeah, like I said before, the issue right now, it's because of the holidays, and I understand the rain is going to be coming down pretty hard next week or this week. So that's going to delay some work. But nonetheless, getting the electricians, for starters, and plumbers out there to get things going, in that I would foresee that taking, I would think, about 2 to 3 weeks to get completed, I think. So yeah, this new timeline sounds a lot more doable and a lot more doable and better to meet it than the January 15th deadline. So that's all I have for now. We're working as, like I said, now that we have hopefully access to the property, then we can start working on things like that. But like I said, I think we still have to wait for the demolition to take place before we can come in. That's all I have.
Ludmilla and then Gail.
So I'm curious if some of the residents, if kind of volunteer help can help with this that need to be done to set up the site. I don't know about other people, but I would have been happy to contribute to something, if I was going to be living there. And I'm also curious about the existing structures. Are there structures there that have like plumbing that could have like a shower facility in them at some point? I mean, why are you taking out all the existing structures instead of utilizing them as part of the community?
No, none of the structure there are anything we can use. There's a building there, but it's mostly glass, and it's not. At least the landlord does not want to keep it because there's possibility that there's asbestos, that there's lead paint, and the roof is not in good shape. So to them, it's not viable to keep it. And for us, we don't really need it because we have other sources like the office trailer we're going to put in place. We're going to have the tent that we're going to put in place. So that's going to replace that actual building. And the other structure that I was talking about are where they had the propane gas originally. They had this really massive walls. They're like 2 feet wide by, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet tall, supporting these big tanks they had. So that to us is useless because that's just in the way. They're just big chunks of concrete walls. So we need to get rid of all this stuff so that we can have the flat surface we need to be able to put in our RV. So there's really nothing in sight right now. There's that we can use for our projects, except for obviously we have all the electric and water infrastructure there, and that's all in one place. So we're going to work from that location to implement it to our project, but there's really nothing there that we can use, or it can be, yeah, it's needed for a project at all. So that's why it's got to be demolished completely. Does that answer the question?
I don't know.
And Hector is working with some of the people at Morris Street. It's a little too early to bring them in. We're not even in yet, but we will have some work days and things, I think, as we go forward. Gail.
Yeah, I think you partially answered that. I was wondering how our timelines or SAFE's timelines affect the eviction of people on Morris Street.
Well, so the issue on Morris Street right now, which, let Cynthia answer some of this. If you can, if that's what you have your hand up for. You're muted.
That's a really good question, Gail. And we're working on that. The police have notified the residents that they're going to start ticketing and towing right after Christmas. I have a call into the mayor, Patrick Slater, about why now. And I'm hoping he will get back to me. Jennifer Lake of West County Community Services and our volunteers have been working really hard to get people's paperwork so that they are legal. And that's where we stand. It's like a race against time.
Yeah, so that leads me into my report I got from Suzanne today saying that she was out there working on this today and couldn't come to our meeting.
Right.
She says that the police have threatened, as most of us know, they've threatened to tow people after Christmas. Now she says as long as Jennifer shows the in-process paperwork, they will hold off. So she also said to me this morning on the phone that she's working like a dog to get people's paperwork together. And I know she's just been working every single day. I hope to bring her in here for report on how that is. It seems so difficult. I have a little experience with it. I think it'd be useful for all of us to understand. Anyway, she's working with people to have their appointments with Jennifer and get as much of the paperwork ready before that. Jennifer is heading a new project of Morris Street residents to do general cleanup in the area, and 2 of them are volunteering for this week. The Sebastopol Council meeting is tomorrow. There is a lot of pushback, she believes, that's going to be there from people who don't want RVs and so on parked in their neighbor's hood. There was some kind of flyer that went out in the neighborhood. We don't know how far, but it was a very nice looking expensive flyer that said, see this picture of Morris Street? Do you want that in your neighborhood? If you don't, call the city council. So someone is whipping up, fear. And I actually talked to the guy that I thought might be behind it, and he denied knowing anything about it. So I don't know who put this thing out. The residents are meeting this Wednesday at 2:00. So there'll be the next meeting. We're hoping to get the name for the village voted on there and a couple other things settled at that meeting. So, but Miguel Magana is out there trying to encourage people to come to the meetings. There was very low turnout the last one we had, and we're hoping that was just a blip and we'll see a big group of people come to the meeting this week. That's all I have. And we have 10 more minutes if people want to bring another topic or have questions. Yeah, Gregory.
Yeah, I just want to, I've been writing in the chat to Carrie about an idea that I just want the whole group to know that I'm going to be trying to work on with Tim Miller and Carrie. If, and it seems like the West County Community Services parking lot might be an opportunity to provide at least a small warming center, and here's how it would work. I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Everybody knows that some people use just, you know, anytime they need it. I also have a very powerful space power supply, 2000 watt power supply. If we can put into the Jeep Cherokee chairs, heaters, and my power supply, and park it in the parking lot of the West County Community Services, and find somebody who at 4 o'clock can go open it up, put the heaters outside and the chairs, and hang out for 4 hours. Then between 4 and 8 in the morning, every morning, there can be a place where people get heat. Okay, I'm willing to do that. And I'm looking for someone who will take responsibility for making sure my car and the heaters and the stuff doesn't get stolen. So we need a local, you know, advocate slash, you know, monitor who will, you know, hopefully, because it's in the parking lot of West County Community Services, not have to make sure all the time that it's protected. It can be locked. It's a solid thing. But I need somebody other than me to be able to be out there. And but I'm willing to loan the car and the heaters and the power supply, and I can even find some chairs. It's the best I can do, and I want everybody to know I'm going to try and work on that. The other thing I wanted to do is, Hector, we have the RV sitting in a storage. Can I move it now into the parking lot of the Sebastopol Safe Parking?
I wouldn't recommend that because they're going to be doing demolishing, and there's really no place that I can think at this point where we can park it, only because they're going to be using both driveways. I would like to actually take a ride up to the job site to see what's actually taking place, but I was just waiting for Patrick to let me know when we can actually step foot on that property, because I think I would imagine that the kind of demolition they're going to do, it's going to be pretty extensive, since they're going to take everything off of there, especially that building in the front. So there's no, currently there's no place to park anything unless we park it on the street, but otherwise there's no place for it that I can.
On the street. Okay, so the second alternative to the one I just described, which is my car and the power supply and heaters and stuff, is we take our RV and put it in the West County Community Services parking lot, and put all the stuff I was just describing in it, and have it be the warming center. Just an idea.
Okay.
That's a really creative thought, both of those. Carrie and then Gail.
Gregory, it's my idea. I'm there for you, man. I'll man it. Let's keep these people from dying, dude. I'm tired of watching people die. I've been watching people die here in this county for damn near 30 years. I've lost too many homeless friends. Way too many.
All right.
I'm here for you.
We need the space heaters. I can get a couple of folding chairs. So let's look for a space heater or two that will fit in the back of my car. You know, something small enough but powerful enough. I've got the power supply. We can get the thing. We got the car. Let's do it. We need
Call Tim.
we need
Get
Tim.
permission.
Yeah, we need Tim, and I sent an email to him, but he's out today. So let's work on it.
All right, Gail.
Yeah, just as a former nurse, it sounds like Greg's idea, if we're putting heat sources outside, would be more COVID safe than a tent. Just
No,
saying.
I was just, my first idea was to stick it on a street and put it on the sidewalk, and then just have people hang out next to the car. You know, I mean, that doesn't seem unhealthy at all, and it's probably, you know, like doable. But I'd like to put it in the parking lot of West County Community Services so that they can also access at 8 o'clock the services.
Getting awning over the top of it. Yeah. You know, no different than say the restaurants out here in their tents.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let us know if money becomes a barrier on some level, because we still have some money in our treasury. We could probably move over to this project.
Okay.
Gregory, I just sent you a little message about the site.
Okay.
Anything else? We are at, what, we got 6 minutes here. Maybe we all get to go have a little cup of tea early today. Oh, Gail, hi. What you got?
Just a repeat, I was changing rooms. I'm not in Santa Rosa, so I was moving my computer around, and I really didn't get what Tara was saying about over 65 versus under 65. Somebody give me a 2-sentence recap on that.
Their funding is senior funding.
So they do take, please correct me if I'm saying this wrong, everyone, but they will take disabled people, not disabled by drugs, but disabled physically or mentally, under 65 who are, what did she call that? Dependent. In other words, they're already sort of, maybe they're in care of or who are abusing them. If their only problem is a mental disability, they refer them to behavioral health. But if there's other problems, particularly physical problems, they will take them up as an investigation in a case.
Okay, so they're not just geriatric. There are 2 categories, but the younger people have to be a dependent.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Anita, I'm so sorry you missed that presentation by Tara. You know, you've talked so much about adult protective services, and we finally found out a whole lot of information about it today.
Good, good. I'm sorry I had my grandson. But I
Yeah.
also wanted to, did anyone get to see the court case that went on Friday?
Yeah.
I
with-
did not. Was anyone else able to be there, Gregory?
I listened to the first half and was fascinated with it. I think it's a great tape, and I think we ought to obtain it, and we ought to put it link to it from Homeless Action. Everybody should listen to it. I didn't hear the result though. I heard all the testimony or most of it.
So this was the hearing on the temporary restraining order to prevent the sweep at Steamers Landing. Yes, Vera.
That's correct. Yes, and
You
I
know-
want to say, Colleen was fascinating, fascinating. She was so good. She didn't come on too strong, and she didn't waver. I was amazed. I think we ought to give her an award for this. This is hard work, and she interviewed 3 homeless people in front of the judge, and they were all very appropriate and very, very stunning. Yeah, because they had a reason to be homeless. And if you get a chance to watch that, you say it was recorded and anyone can go and watch it. So it's very exciting, and they're going to come back in January to decide the issue. It's still pending. So
Wow.
the injunction is not removed. Cataluma didn't get what they want. And January 14th at 9 a.m. It will come back, and I think we ought to do everything we can to help Colleen, because she wants to transfer it to First Amendment rights.
Wow,
So
that's great.
that would
I'm
make it
so glad you
even
brought
more
it up.
powerful.
Yeah. So Vera and Mary, and then we'll probably fit in the meeting for the day. Vera?
Okay, hi you guys. Sorry I'm not on there with my face. I got things going on. Anyways, I put something in the chat. The problem with West County Community Services has been always that there is a private owner of the building.
Yeah.
And he supposedly, or they supposedly, will not allow anything to go into that parking lot. And I think it's because of all the rejection of the 3rd Street businesses. I just happen to have my hair salon upstairs on 3rd Street from the businesses that are complaining. And they're also part of who did the vigilante, quote unquote, move of the homeless people to Park and Ride. And Park and Ride now is across from Dawn Ranch, and Dawn Ranch is open now for business again, just on weekends. So maybe something could be considered during the week at Park and Ride when Dawn Ranch is not open, but it'd have to be put up and taken down and, you know, on the weekend kind of thing. But yeah, it's a problem with this West County Community Services, unless it was, I could see it being completely fenced off on the 3rd Street side. I like the idea of people coming through Guerneville and seeing what's going on with those homeless people and them being cold and everything. And of course, the hours are good, 4 to 8 a.m. Might miss these business people, but the coffee shop is open, I think, very early. I think they open at like 5 a.m. or something. Hair salon, probably 8 or 9. I don't open till 12. So, and I'm not bothered by anything at all with the homeless, but, and that's the only businesses is right there is West, what is it called? Anyways, the hair salon and the coffee shop are the main things, and that are main people that are worried about West County Community Services having bathrooms put in that lot or any kind of services for homeless people, but they're coming back. They have been around 3rd Street again, but not like they were before. It's more like they just roam around 3rd Street because, like Carrie said, that is where the sun is for some reason, and they're close to the liquor store, and that's where they have called home for so long before they got kicked out. So they keep returning there. But yeah, I'll be interested to hear what Tim Miller has to say about doing this. And I have a feeling we're going to face the same thing as the owner will allow it.
Yeah, it's the health clinic that owns it. It's not a private. I mean, it's, you know, Mary Sajak and those folks.
Okay, maybe they're lying, you know, to the business owners and or something's going on.
Yeah, okay.
Let's since we're coming to the end of the story, let's let you two talk. Mary had her hand up and I want to get to her before we leave.
I'll try to make this quick, and if this is something that's been covered before, I apologize because I haven't been on these calls on a regular basis. The question about the way the space in Sebastopol is being built out for trailers and RVs. Question, has anybody spoken yet to, has anybody considered putting an outreach to local contractors to see who might be willing to volunteer their services as opposed to having to pay for it? And secondly, another way to reach them might be through local Rotary or Seroptimus, and I didn't know whether there's been any opportunity to ask to speak before those local business organizations to try to get business support for this new location.
We have done some outreach to Rotary. The other clubs, for some reason, I think they're engaged in other projects and, you know, didn't seem like good options, but we have done some work on the Rotary. And I think the city councilwoman, Diana Rich, has reached out to some of her contacts to try to get some volunteer help from, you know, contractors, sort of.
Would it be worth putting a list out to this your email distribution, identifying what kinds of contractor help and you know the level of the kind of work that is, for instance, on electrical, what's needed on any construction or carpentry, what's needed, so that people on this list, if they know of contractors, have relationships, they could reach out to them and see whether any of those licensed contractors might volunteer some work. It sounds like some of the constructions you're talking about is pretty minimal, and if there might be some contractors out there that are willing to give back.
Yes.
Hector, Do you like this idea? We could certainly do it.
It seems like if Hector's coordinating this, he might know what skills and resources are needed. And it, you know, even if there was just an initial baseline thing of how many hours or just a description of what the work might be, it's worth maybe getting some free resources that are donated by these contractors.
Yeah, actually, I'm in the process right now. As a matter of fact, I'm on my phone doing some research. Some people have mentioned to me some construction companies that I can talk to about maybe getting some resource or information. So that's another thing. I'm gonna have to start calling them and trying to figure out if they would be willing to do some free work for us. But so far, the people that I've met or talked to, you know, they're just looking at it as a job to do, like the electricians and the plumbers. A lot of the manual labor, because I think we're going to have to do a lot of trenching in order to provide the water and the electric points of contact at the area where their trailers are going to be. That could be, you know, we can use some volunteer work to do the heavy trenching work, the digging part, but we need to buy the tools, I think, unless, especially if I can find a company that's, you know, one of these contractor companies that want to donate that time. But I'm in the process of doing that. As I said, right now I'm going to see if I can find somebody that could assist us in that way, where it's just volunteering work for this particular project.
So Hector, if you were to put that list out and put it out on the email list, there may be other people who have relationships with some of these contractors or people who have these skills that they could do some of the outreach for you.
Okay, so you want me to put together a list of the skills we're going to need?
Yeah, I think that's what she's suggesting.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I apologize because I was listening, but I was also trying to do my my work on my phone here, so I didn't really hear what you said. The first part of your comment, as far as how to what needs to be done. I heard.
Put together the list and then put it out to the email list that goes out on homelessness, so that this whole community can be looking at what's needed. And make sure that the subject line makes it really clear. This is the list of skills needed from licensed contractors.
Okay.
Yeah, if you make a list, Hector, I'll send it out.
Okay. I'll get that.
Thank you,
Great.
Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you for the idea and for clarifying it all. Ludmilla.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the quarterly meeting for the COC is happening January 17th, like a month from now. And that's there. It is open for community updates on programs and projects. I think it's January 17th or the 19th, something like that. If you can email Carissa White to reserve a slot or just show up and speak. Last meeting there was like exactly 0 community updates. It's really a tremendously underutilized point of connection to get the word out on stuff. Any questions on that?
Just if you could send us the actual date and, you know, the Zoom and all that when it comes out, I think that would be useful, Ludmilla. And I hear you that we should plan to get some.
I would love to see, more presentations, like a planned speech of some kind about something that people are doing, and something that's available, because there's just a lot of resources that aren't getting shared enough, So anyways, yeah. I mean, the intent is to connect with other people in the community who are involved with the continuum of care, of which we have a few gaps in that continuum. Oh my God. Anyways, you get it.
Thank you. All right, everyone. I'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you,
Christmas.
Adrian. Thank you,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas.
Hey,
Thank you.
Carrie,
Thank you,
hey,
everyone.
don't get out of the Zoom, Carrie. Stay in it. Okay, so can you hear me? Carrie?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so here's what I can do. I'm gonna bring the Cherokee and the power supply out to you with the keys and leave it with you and with the chairs. I can't get the space, I mean, the heaters, but we can work on that. There've been a couple of different ideas. My basic idea is even if we don't have a place that looks like terrifically the best place, we can go with the idea of just finding a place to put the car and the heaters and the stuff and have somebody be the sort of local, opener upper and closer and just use it as a mobile warming center. There's got to be places in parking lots we can put it just for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
let's work on all the other places. We'll go after the things that are in the chat. There are several good ideas. But if we can just get the equipment out there and somebody to man it, I think we can make it work.
Yep. I'm willing.
So where are you going to be today? Where can I meet you?
I have dump run to do this morning. And then I'm pretty much free until around 5. I have
Okay.
a job later on this afternoon. Sally's birthday tomorrow, so.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'll meet you at 2 o'clock anywhere you want.
Okay.
I'll bring it and the heat and the power supply out to you and the chairs if I can find the ones in my garage. And then I'll take a Uber back. So 2 o'clock, where do you want to be?
Let's meet at the plaza.
Plaza.
Yeah,
Oh, I know where that is, right at the entrance to town, right?
pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I'll be on the
Park
street.
and ride.
Pardon?
What about park and ride?
Well,
Carrie,
is Park and Ride open? Last I went
Yeah,
by.
park and ride's open.
Okay, all right. I'll meet you at Park and Ride at 2 o'clock.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good.
if it's gonna be sitting there, if that Cherokee's gonna be sitting there, you're not gonna be able to stay with it all the time, like,
I'm gonna give him the key. He can drive it anywhere he wants.
oh,
So we
wow.
find a place. I just want to pass it on to him because he's local, he's there, he's going to be thinking about it. And if he has all the equipment and we can just use the Cherokee as the storage movable, to anywhere, he can put it anywhere he wants while we're finding a permanent place. But hopefully we can find a place soon. And hopefully, if he's got guts enough, he can just start it on some street that nobody's going to care about between 4 and 8 in the morning.
Wow. That's amazing.
I mean, you can move it from 8 to the next 4 o'clock to anywhere you want to keep it out of, keep it safe. I'm just saying it becomes a kind of mobile, morning warming center with all the stuff inside it.
Yeah. Place where we can stage coffee, food.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
It's got nice seats.
I
and it's got-
said the plaza because the parking lot down at the bottom of the hill there
Uh-huh.
is not utilized at that time of the morning. There's just like nobody around at all.
Okay, all right, I'll meet you at the plaza.
Okay.
You
All right.
mean River Park then, Gary? River Park down there underneath. the beach.
Uh-huh. Down underneath the Grenville footbridge. Yep.
You're gonna get a lot of flack from Jerry Knight. Jerry Knight's the one that sued Russian River Keepers,
Yeah.
4
okay.
to 8 in the morning. I doubt we'll get much slack from them.
Yeah, but okay, we'll try
I'm
it.
gonna, Vera, I'm gonna trust you and Carrie to shepherd this, figure out the best place. If it doesn't work out, move it to some other place. I mean, figure out
Yeah,
some
you know.
place that people, will know about. And there won't be too many people upset about.
It's a vehicle. It rolls.
It's a
I
nice
think
vehicle.
do it
Okay. All right, 2 o'clock. I'll see you.
Okay.
Okay, see you there. Talk to you.